Hannah mentioned those 13 victims still trying to recover.
So much. Hannah, one of the things that we are learning from authorities this morning is that the scene was so large and so chaotic, Hannah, that Austin police officers, because ambulances were not able to make it to the scene, from what I'm being told from law enforcement sources who are at the scene, is that police officers actually loaded some of the victims into their patrol cars, as well as an Austin police vehicle that was at the scene, Hannah, and then drove those patients to the hospital. So obviously everyone doing what they could to provide first aid. We've seen videos of police officers administering first aid to victims at the scene.
Certainly a chaotic situation. What's important to note is the time of when this happened. 1:30. You know, we're talking about Austin opening up again. This is 6th Street, one of the most iconic streets here. Everyone is out again. And we're talking about large groups. People are coming here and visiting Austin again. Yesterday, a huge event out of Circuit of the Americas, the Rod Rally. Thousands of bikers and travelers are here in town, and this is something we're keeping a close eye on. You know, looking at these videos and Twitter, we want to hear from you. If you were on 6th Street last night, please let us know what you saw, what you heard. You can tag us, message us. And we're still getting some different video throughout the morning as well.
Hannah, I want to talk about the investigation that is unfolding, because there is a gunman at loose at this point. Authorities are confirming that there obviously is at least one shooter, but Hannah, they have not ruled out the possibility that someone else may have been involved in this shooting as well. So because of that, as you can imagine, there is a massive investigation going on in the city of Austin and throughout Central Texas right now to try to find that shooter. Hannah, just within the last few minutes, authorities for the FBI confirmed that they are involved in this investigation. Of course, it is being led by the Austin Police Department, but because of the scope and the size of this investigation, so many personnel are needed, Hannah, really to do a number of different things right now to try to identify the gunman. One of the things that is happening right now is that detectives are being called in. Austin police detectives are being called in off duty to try to interview witnesses, anyone who may have seen or heard anything. Because we're dealing with a large crowd, you can imagine that that is a lot of people who potentially need to be interviewed. But Hannah, another piece of compelling evidence that authorities believe and hope may lead them to the shooter is the gathering of video information. Video not only from bystanders who may have been in the area, but also, Hannah, from nearby businesses who may have had halo cameras. So at this moment, detectives are fanning out throughout that area to try to find that video.
And we actually have some video, but before we show it to you, we want to give you a warning. Once again, this is a mass shooting that we're talking about, a very chaotic scene there. So some of this could be graphic. So once again, we want to give you that warning before we show you this video here that we do have.
Get to the back bar. Have a drink in the back, please. Appreciate y'all. Please, everybody. It's okay to organize, chill. Just pick up glasses. I got you. Please, guys.
Of course, anyone with information about this shooting is asked to call police. You can do that in a number of different ways. There is a Crime Stopper tip line. That phone number is 512-472 TIPS. You can also, of course, call 911 if you believe there is an emergency, or if you believe you know who this gunman is, or anyone who may have been involved in this shooting. But again, Hannah, the real emphasis right now by police is trying to find the suspect or suspects who may have been involved. Again, the good news is that there appears, at least at this point, to have been no fatalities from this overnight shooting that, again, has injured 13 people. And Hannah, based on the reports that I'm getting from emergency responders, is that really they have seen a range of injuries in this case. I know in that video you can see police officers trying to administer emergency care, first aid to that person.
The main takeaway here is obviously the amount of people who were shot at, but that this individual is still on the loose. And we actually want to show you the latest. There was a press conference this morning from the police department, and here is the latest from Austin Police. We're going to take a look here.
My name is Joseph Chacon. I'm the interim chief of police for the Austin Police Department. We're here today to go ahead and give a briefing on an incident that has occurred this morning in our 6th Street Entertainment District area. Just to give a little bit of background, 6th Street on a Friday night is very busy. The streets are barricaded, and we have large crowds. We're seeing crowds like we have seen prior to COVID, and they're very they're in the street and very active. So this was around 1:30 in the morning, and I'll just go through a timeline that will provide a little perspective on what happened tonight. At 1:24 a.m., Austin 911 received a call of shots fired in the area. Initially, we had a report of 3 victims, and then as this incident unfolded, the number of victims, it became clear that there were many, many victims in this incident. Multiple 911 calls began coming in at that point. Fire and EMS were also notified and were asked to respond, but to stage until we could make the scene safe. At 1:26 a.m., we were able to obtain a suspect description. I'll give this description. It is not very detailed, just based on the chaotic nature of the incident this evening. But it is a black male wearing a black shirt with a skinny build and with dreadlocks, dreadlock type hair. At 1:27, 4 to 5 more patients had been called in, and one of them had very serious injuries. At 1:28, as the crowd is starting to disperse at this point, we are trying to get people coordinated for witnesses to make the scene safe. And what became very clear early on in this incident is that our officers responded very quickly. They were able to immediately begin life-saving measures for many of these patients, including applications of tourniquets, applications of chest seals, and other types of first aid equipment that they carry on their person. And I'm happy to report that at this moment we do not have any persons that are deceased. We do have 2 patients that are in critical condition. We have a total of 11 people that were transported to one hospital. 1 person was transported to a different hospital, and then 1 person reported to an urgent care clinic with multiple gunshot wounds. So there's a total at this point that we're aware of 13 victims that have been shot in this incident. As this incident was unfolding, and officers, because of the nature, again, very large crowds, it was very difficult to contain the scene. It was very difficult for EMS to make their way into this crowd. And because of the nature of the injuries, officers had to go ahead and use their police vehicles to put some of these shooting victims into the vehicles and transport them themselves to the hospital so that they could get the urgent care that they needed. Fire and EMS did manage to make their way, and we had a total of 6 patients that were transported by police, 4 were transported by EMS, and then 3 patients transported themselves in a personal vehicle. So at this point, we're reviewing all of the video sources that we have. We have our Halo public safety camera system downtown. We have officers with their body-worn cameras, as well as many businesses have surveillance video in this area, and all of those video sources will be reviewed. Our aggravated assault and homicide unit detectives are out here investigating at this time, as well as members of our organized crime and our gang units from that perspective, to see if this incident was gang related or what other type of motive there might have been in this shooting incident. It's not clear at this point what sparked this off or why this happened, but out of an abundance of caution, we have notified the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, which comes out on active shooter type scenarios in order to help with those investigations, and they are on the scene as well. What we're asking for at this point is for anyone that might have information on this, might have been down here and either witnessed something, or if video was taken that's on a cell phone owned by somebody in our community, for them to go ahead and contact us. You can either call 911 or you can call our tip line at 512-472-TIPS. That is about as much information as I have on this incident right now. It is very fresh, and we're still have the area shut down. It will be shut down for quite a few hours. It is a large crime scene, and I'm very grateful at this point that we do not have more people that are deceased. I do believe that it was the actions of our officers who responded very quickly and have been trained in life-saving measures, including use of their first aid kits and tourniquets that they carry on their person to be able to quickly apply that first aid and help people that were in serious injury, serious distress. Up here I have also with me people from the FBI, from the Austin Fire Department, from EMS, and then other folks here from the Austin Police Department. That is all of my prepared comments at this point. Like I said, this is still a pretty new incident and very unfolding at this point, but I will take a few questions if there's anything that I can answer.
Was the shooting all in one spot, or was it spread across multiple times?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that I forgot to mention is the exact location where this occurred. It occurred in the 400 block of East 6th Street. And so that, it seems to be isolated at this point, but that is something that's still being investigated.
As a police officer, what's going through your mind when this kind of scenario happens?
Obviously, the first thing is trying to save people's lives, as well as identify a suspect and get that person into custody. I think that we did the first part, and we're working on the second part right now.
Have all the suspects been caught, and is the public in any danger right now?
I would say that the public, I cannot say that there's no further public danger at this point because the suspect is not in custody. So it appears at this point to be isolated to this one area, but as we receive more information on that, we'll put it out. Yes.
Is there possibly any connection to the rock rally being in town?
The Rot Rally is here, and that does bring in large crowds. I don't have any information right now that it's directly related to that.
Is there any chance potential to shut down 6th or tighten up security around 6th Street this weekend, or possibly throughout the summer after this?
Security is always pretty good down here because of the way that we cordon off the streets, block off the streets, using barricades and try to keep people safe that way. We have a lot of officers that are assigned to our downtown area command, and that actually work in this area. There's a high visible presence of officers. We try to keep it as safe as we can, but what we have seen in recent months and over the last year or so is an increase in our gun violence. And so this is just emblematic of that. It continues, and it's something that we're really trying to work to decrease.
I'm sorry, could you tell me just a few of the factors of why the FBI
Anytime that we have a potential of a active shooter or a scene that might be some type of, there might be a domestic terrorism nexus, we call them in. At this point, I don't know that that is the case. It cannot be ruled out, and therefore we call them in early on so that they come early on in the investigation.
Do you have an idea of how many shooters there were or how many gunmen there were?
No, not at this point.
Or that what caliber of weapon they used?
Don't know that at this point.
And any word on what kind of weapon was used? I just got-
No, don't know that at this point.
Just to recheck again, you said how many victims was it again total?
So we have a total of 13 victims. 11 are at one hospital, we have one at a different hospital, and then one at an urgent care clinic.
No fatalities?
At this time, no, but we do have 2 that are in critical condition. You know, we always tell people when they're in large crowds like this, when they come down to the entertainment district, to just be vigilant, to take care, to take the type of steps that you would want them to take, that we would want them to take to keep themselves safe, including, you know, being with other people, and to just be very aware. Have a plan if you are going to be drinking on how you're going to get home, those type of things, but we try to create a safe environment for them.
Do you know how many officers were downtown on 6th Street when this happened?
I don't have the exact number right now.
Last question. Was the gentleman that was laying on the ground by the cone in that one scene, was he a victim of this?
So we had multiple victims that at one point or another were laid on the ground. So you know, that's when our officers were applying, like I said, the life-saving measures, and ultimately we got them all transported. Thank you all very much.
Interim Police Chief Joe Chacon there, and I think the main thing we want to focus on right now is, of course, how the transports happened last night. A very chaotic scene, as he said. 6th Street busier than we have seen it in months, and some of those victims having to literally transport themselves.
Yeah, extraordinary response by Austin Police. Hannah, of course, on any given night, including last night and overnight this morning, obviously because of the size of the crowds that are on 6th Street, there is very often a fairly significant police presence, both on foot, sometimes on horseback, at least historically, as well as in patrol cars. 6th Street, I'm a little unclear if it was closed to the public or closed to traffic. Last night, it likely was. That is historically what has happened in our city. I'm a little unclear if the street has been closed during the pandemic, but at least last night, again, what authorities are telling us is that the size of the crowd was really a pre-pandemic size.
Right. And I mean, we're back to somewhat normal again. Like we've said, these large events are happening. Tourism is happening again. The main takeaway, though, is, of course, this suspect is still on the loose. Police need your help. If you were downtown last night, we want to hear from you. Police wants to hear from you. Actually, right now, Tori Larnett is outside the hospital where some of those victims were taken. Good morning, Tori. What have you learned so far?
Good morning, Hannah. Yeah, as we heard from that press conference and from Tony, it took a lot of helping hands from EMS, Austin Police, and even people willing to drive their private cars to get these victims to the hospital and to get them taken care of. Like we mentioned, as of now, officials tell us nobody has died. I did talk to Austin Travis County EMS, and they said they were the ones who transported the 2 critically hurt people and 2 people who were also seriously injured, but are expected to be okay. Now, despite the crowds of downtown Austin early in the morning, especially on a Friday morning, EMS says they were able to get into that area to help by 1:33 a.m. That is less than 10 minutes after those 911 calls started coming in. I'm also told that EMS activated their urgent response, sending at least 5 ambulances. I believe there were 6 to 7 there, 5 commanders and 5 other units to help this scene and this incident. Now, between all the people who helped, the victims were taken to 2 separate hospitals. Police also tell me that 1 other person was taken to an urgent care. APD Interim Police Chief Joseph Chacon says his officers stepped up and used their training to help a lot of people. Okay, we did show that to you earlier. As he mentioned, they were trained in first aid kits, tourniquets, and a lot of techniques that they were able to get out there, organize the crowd, organize those victims, and get them to these hospitals. We're going to keep you updated on their conditions. We are reaching out to the hospitals and to APD to learn as much as we can. For now, stick with us here on KVUE all morning long and KVUE.com for the latest. Back to you, Hannah.
Thank you, Tori Larned, there for us. And I know that's our main thing here is we want to keep a close eye on how these victims are recovering throughout the morning. If you're just joining us, we are talking about 13 people that were shot in downtown Austin overnight.
No fatalities have been reported, though we do know from authorities and from EMS that a couple of those victims, Hannah, really again a range of injuries here. One person drove himself to an urgent care clinic near the scene, but others were taken by ambulance. Several others were taken by ambulance to the hospital. We are told that 2 of them are in serious to critical condition at this time. But Hannah, from what I'm being told by authorities is that essentially this person just walked into the crowd and began firing a weapon randomly. And from what I've gathered from law enforcement officials that I've spoken with in the overnight hours is that they have been watching some of the video that they've been able to gather so far, and just really dramatic and traumatizing video where people appear 1 second to be having a good time, and then the next they're falling onto the pavement along 6th Street.
And Tony, as we know, as we're both glued to Twitter, social media plays a huge role in these investigations. If you were there last night, a lot of people are releasing these the videos online, kind of not realizing, this is going to play a big part in how they pin who this person is. And we want to give you guys a little bit of a better perspective. The first 911 call came in just before 1:30 for multiple shots fired. And we actually have an idea of how chaotic things were. You can take a listen to some of the first responders overnight.
Yes, EMS coming to 6th Street. We have 2 people down, gunshot wounds, 1 to the abdomen, 1 to the leg. Dispatch, make that the 3rd one, 1 to the hip. Street, we have 3 patients. We have 2 tourniquets applied. Dispatch for prevention upgrades that to 7 gunshot wounds, 1 CPR in progress.
Bruce, you're going to bring the call to active attack. Stand by.
We've got another victim at 5th and Trinity with a gunshot wound to the ankle. We have 7 patients, gunshot wounds, 1 CPR in progress. We are in front of 406 East 6th Street.
All units responding to the GSW. We are upgrading this to an active attack.
Now, of course, we're going to continue following this story throughout the morning. There's still a lot of missing pieces here, and you guys also play a big part in that. We want to hear from you throughout the morning if you were downtown. In the meantime, we are also going to get a closer look, lighten things up just a bit here with our friend Shane Hinton. Shane, we have a hot weekend ahead of us, don't we?
Hey, Hannah, yeah, that's right. And naturally, we don't want to start our weekend off with such drastic news such as this. Take a look at those temperatures over the past 20 hours. You see, yesterday was a hot one for Central Texas. They were in Austin even overnight tonight when that shooting occurred. Temperatures were sitting out there in the upper 70s, so people very well likely could have been out on the streets just due to how hot it was inside and some of those bars and locations. So we are going to continue to monitor hot conditions as we go throughout your weekend here in Central Texas. Taking a look at the Doppler radar as we scan the skies, we're coming up with nothing in regards to precipitation, nor will we probably for a majority of the extended forecast. Temperatures ranging anywhere from the mid to upper 70s on the thermometer, but keep in mind it feels a lot warmer than that due to those elevated dew points. Why are we seeing those dew points? Well, we have a ridge of high pressure to the west that's clearing out our conditions. You can see really the only bulk of activity we're tracking is near the Dallas area. There were some stronger storms earlier this morning. This is in the upper levels of the atmosphere where this high pressure is located. Surface moisture is bringing in those elevated dew points anywhere from the mid to upper 70s. So right now it feels like it's 80 degrees in Austin and it's not even 8 o'clock yet. It looks like we're being set up for another day where we could see triple digit heat index. So that's the what feels like temperature is what we put in kind of like the common terms here. As we make our way into the afternoon, 96 degrees is what it could feel like at 4:30, but we could hit the triple digits even before that. And it doesn't look like we're only going to be stuck with this heat on Saturday. It'll linger into Sunday and even into the work week ahead. Take a look at this. This is 5:30 in the afternoon on Sunday, where we could be seeing triple-digit heat indexes for the southeastern county of our viewing area. Take a look at the radar, what we can expect. Maybe an isolated shower that skirts by just to the east of our viewing area. Maybe a few clouds lingering for the morning time, and then clearing out for the afternoon. This is a pattern we saw yesterday as well, and I think that's what we're going to see also as we go into Sunday. A mostly cloudy start, mostly due to all that moisture that we have lingering into the area, with mostly sunny afternoons. Temperatures on the thermometer will be reading in the mid-90s, but once again, the key important factor is that heat index, going to be in the triple digits, closer to 101 to 104 across central Texas today. So please make sure you are staying hydrated and take breaks if you're going to be spending times outdoors. Now, today's UV index is an 11. That is very high, so make sure you are protecting against the sun, wearing sunscreen and appropriate clothing. Also, make sure you are staying hydrated and taking breaks as you can. Allergy count for today: trees back in the medium, grass and mold, unfortunately, both in the high category. Alternaria was also on that slide. You can always stay up to date with that information in the KVUE app and the Austin American-Statesman. Overnight tonight, temperatures ranging anywhere from the lower to mid-70s. This is just around average for this time of year. We're accustomed to temperatures around 73 degrees. Expect a mostly clear to partly cloudy night. The reason we're getting those clouds to develop is just due to all the moisture that we have in the atmosphere. Let's take a look at that 7-day forecast for you. Really, I don't have much relief from the heat in regards to rainfall. I'm only putting about a 10% chance for showers lingering from Sunday all the way through Thursday of next week. Notice mostly sunny days are going to allow our temperatures to climb up into the mid to upper 90s, but those triple-digit heat indices will continue to linger as we make our way throughout the weekend into the next work week. Winds fairly calm, anywhere from 5 to 10 miles per hour. We'll be right back with more updates right after the break.
Okay, good. Good. Okay, good. Oh, Taylor? Taylor, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys, but I can also hear much louder the show.
Oh, you can hear the programming too?
Yeah.
Okay. We are actually going to come back here in just a few minutes, and hopefully you'll be able to not hear that loud, obnoxious sound anymore.
It's gone. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone now.
It's good now. Oh, good. Good morning, Taylor. We're gonna come back to you here in just a couple minutes.
Are you the anchor?
Yes, I'm Hannah. Hi.
Oh, nice to meet you, Hannah.
Good morning, sweetheart. And Tony's gonna talk to you. Tony's gonna do the interview with you in just a couple minutes, or we can do it together, I guess. Yeah, we can both talk to him.
Yeah,
okay.
You can do whatever you want. I mean.
No, I won't.
I'm also a journalist as well, so. Yeah. Anything I should know that you're going to ask so I can think about it a little bit before?
Yeah, so they were mentioning they don't know for sure if there was a gang involved, but I mean, I know you mentioned earlier about like motorcycles and a presence, and I think that's definitely okay to say. We just don't know for sure if you know what? Yeah, you can just say what you saw.
Yeah, I'm unsure if there was gang violence too. That was not anything I would say.
Yes. Oh, perfect.
I'm not going to say anything I'm unsure of. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything rumors or anything like that.
Oh, good. You know how it works. Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you can just kind of keep it brief as to what you saw. Welcome back on this Saturday morning. We continue our coverage on the mass shooting in downtown Austin overnight. This is our top story today. We are working to learn everything we can for you. More than a dozen people were sent to the hospital.
Hannah, it happened just before 1:30 this morning on 6th Street, of course, the heart of Austin's entertainment district. KVUE's Bryce Newberry is live downtown this morning for us on 6th Street with the latest at the scene. Bryce, what are you seeing and hearing out there this morning?
Well, Tony and Hannah, it is much different out here than what it was like overnight. 6th Street is back open. There's only a little remnant of some crime scene tape on the barriers that APD normally uses to shut down this area. But we've been listening to that scanner traffic of first responders coming out here last night. It took about 20 minutes for them to really make sure that all of the victims were taken care of. And it was just chaos of them trying to figure out where the victims were located and how they were going to get them to the hospital. I do want to talk about the suspect because this morning that person is still at large. Police are still searching for him. And we were given a very vague description by APD, very vague. What they tell us is that there's at least one suspect, and the description that they have is that he was a black male with dreadlocks wearing a black shirt and a skinny build. Now we realize that could be a lot of different people, but that's what we were told, and we wanted to pass that on. But this morning here on 6th Street, for people who are driving through this morning, it's like nothing ever happened, because what's really left out here are the barriers and the cones that are normally out here over the weekend. I do want to get to some sound now. Let's play that now.
You know, security is always pretty good down here because of the way that we cordon off the streets, block off the streets, using barricades and try to keep people safe that way. We have a lot of officers that are assigned to our downtown area command and that actually work in this area. There's a high visible presence of officers. We try to keep it as safe as we can, but what we have seen in recent months and over the last year or so is an increase in our gun violence. And so this is just emblematic of that. It continues, and it's something that we're really trying to work to decrease.
That was Interim Police Chief Joseph Chacon that you just heard there. He gave a press briefing around 4 o'clock this morning. And as you know, and as he said, this is an area that's pretty busy at night, especially on the weekends. And so there are a lot of officers who are already in this area working to secure the area. And so they were already here last night when this shooting started. We have heard from a few people who are coming back to the area this morning who were here last night. None of them have been interested in doing an interview with us on camera, but what they said is it was chaos as we've been describing it. People were running in all different directions. That's what we've seen in some of the pictures and videos. This morning, though, police are still searching for that suspect with the help of the FBI. Hannah and Tony.
Bryce Newberry for us live downtown 6th Street. Certainly, like he said, a different scene, even just seeing the sun shining out there. I can't get over what happened last night. Tony?
Absolutely. And Hannah, as we try to tell the story of what did unfold, obviously we're hearing from law enforcement and emergency responders, but we've also been trying to reach out to people who were there, people who may have witnessed something that happened. And it is our understanding that on the phone right now, we have a person who was along 6th Street when all of this unfolded. Taylor, can you hear us this morning?
Hello, Tony.
Hi, Taylor.
Hi, how you guys doing?
I can't hear Taylor.
You can't hear him?
I can't hear him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk with Taylor here. Good morning, Taylor. We really appreciate.
Hello,
Hi. We appreciate you so much joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
You're doing all right. Tell us a little bit about what happened last night on 6th Street when you were out there.
Well, it was about 1:30, and I was standing on the block looking towards where the shooting happened, which is in front of 512 and Jackalope, and I heard it sounded at least the same gun fire about 5 to 10 shots into the crowd. I did not see the shooter, although people were in the front of him. Mm-hmm. There was a brief pause, and then everybody started running in different directions. It became quite chaotic. Yeah.
And I know you were telling us that you do go downtown a lot. You're on 6th Street a lot, and this is something we've been talking about throughout the morning. 6th Street kind of does feel pre-pandemic. These crowds are coming out again. People are going to the bars again. Did last night sort of feel pre-pandemic to you?
Yes, there was a lot of people here. The bars are absolutely packed with both bikers and bikes and spectators and just the regular crowd, honestly.
And when that shooting and you heard the shots fire out, what did you, you ran home, you got into an Uber, what did you do?
I went back into the bar that I had been drinking at, and everybody closed and locked the doors. There was a fight that ensued a little bit after that between a biker and what they called a gang member, but it isn't sure what really happened. The police arrested the man who started the fight.
Oh, you saw them arrest. There was kind of an altercation there at the bar or outside of it?
Yes, immediately after.
Wow, certainly a hectic night. I hope you're doing okay. I know it's been stressful, and I can only imagine how tired you are. All of this, of course, happened very early in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're showing you right now some of this video here. Anything else you want to share with us this morning, Taylor?
I would say that during the pandemic, many restaurants actually changed their liquor license to be restaurants, so then people can now carry weapons inside the restaurant that used to be bars. And many of these bars have not switched this, they have not switched back to a 51%, so people can walk into bars with guns. I think the best example of this is Coyote Ugly, which says it has a 51% fine.
All right. Well, that was. Thank you so much, Taylor. We really appreciate you sharing that with us. I hope you're able to go and get some sleep after a very stressful night, and I'm glad you were able to make it out safely, most importantly.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir, for that. And of course, we are still learning, more details exactly about what happened. That was one gentleman there who was downtown. And Tony, you actually have some video of that aftermath that you were able to get. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
And Hannah, we are still getting some video from people who were at the scene. Of course, authorities are collecting that video as well to possibly determine if there are any clues, any identifiers of the shooter that they can glean from that. Hannah, I want to mention that we have reached out to Mayor Steve Adler's office this morning.
Yeah.
And we are told that the mayor's office should have a statement within the next few minutes with the mayor's response about what happened. Hannah, I also want to point out, if you've been following sort of the political landscape here in Austin as well, we have heard extensively, of course, in that 4 a.m. Briefing from Interim Police Chief Joe Chacon. Hannah, I say interim because he has been in the interim status after the previous police chief, Brian Manley, left at the end of February. Of course, Chief Chacon has confirmed, Hannah, that he is a contender, that he has applied for the permanent position. So, of course, his response and the department's response to incidents like this are being heavily scrutinized as he is a candidate for the job. Of course, we have now, just in the several months that he has been in that interim status as the city's top law enforcement officer, we have seen his department now responding to now 2 major incidences, with the other being that report of an active shooter in late April in the Arboretum, in which 3 people were shot and killed in that area. The suspect in that case was apprehended the following morning in what was described as a domestic violence incident by authorities. But again, people really kind of following the politics of Austin know that how this will be playing out, and that really all eyes are on APD and specifically on the interim police chief as he is a contender for the job.
Absolutely. And in that press conference earlier today, he did talk a little bit about gun violence, and that is kind of an initiative he has taken on firsthand to try to combat this growing issue, especially as more people are out and about. We do have more video to show you. Of course, we want to give you a warning. Any video we show you this morning of this incident, of course, could potentially be graphic. So once again, we want to give you a fair warning. And now we're going to show you the video from this incident last night.
Get to the back bar. Have a drink in the back, please. Appreciate y'all.
As you can see, their officers are giving CPR to at least one person in that video. A very hectic situation here, and something, of course, Tony, we have mentioned a few times this morning is not only did some of those victims transport themselves, some of those police officers also had to take some of those victims on top of EMS a lot going on, Tony, out there.
A really chaotic scene, and I know we've been talking about this, but the crowd size is really what has been described to me by law enforcement as a pre-pandemic size crowd. And again, Hannah, authorities are still trying to piece through exactly what happened, but based on those preliminary reports, someone who was armed with a gun walked into a crowd on the street and began really firing at random. I'm told that the video that authorities have been able to look at of those crucial moments, Hannah, in this investigation really just show people appearing in 1 second to be enjoying themselves on 6th Street, having a good time, and then, Hannah, within moments, mere seconds, you can then see people falling to the ground after being shot. Just to recap, 13 people confirmed shot. Really a lot of varying injuries out there. We know that 2 have very serious to critical injuries, but again, Hannah, we've seen people who, including one person apparently who drove himself or was driven to an urgent care clinic. But again, the real response here that is so compelling and I think underscores the chaos of what was unfolding is Austin police officers, because we're told that ambulances and other responder vehicles could not get through the crowd, again, a very large crowd on 6th Street, that police officers who were there had to transport some of the victims by their patrol car, their squad car, as well as another police vehicle at the scene to get them to the hospital.
And something too is, we just saw Bryce there, clear scene, the sun is shining, but this person is still on the loose. This person is still out there. When you look at the amount of people in this incident, it is concerning. It's concerning that this person is out here, and that's why there are multiple agencies helping with this. There's people sifting through social media online. They're asking for anyone. And once again, you look at that video and how many people were out there last night. There's people out there this morning that know something that could be oh so helpful in this investigation. And of course, that is the top priority from these agencies, is to get this person who shot all of these people and get them into custody and learn a little bit more about what happened.
So, Hannah, to that extent, if people have information, of course, there are a number of different ways you can get that information into the hands of law enforcement. You can call Crime Stoppers at 512-472-8477. Also, another number that you can call is 512-974-5000. That will also get you to the police as well. Hannah, of course, if you are in imminent threat or if you know where the gunman is as well or who that person may be, you of course can also call 911. But really those 2 tip lines, I want to give them to you again. 512-472-8477 is the Crime Stoppers tip line. There's also 512-974-TIPS. So a number of different ways to get that information to the police. Hannah, I think one thing that also we are going to see, of course, when there is a major incident like this, is in the days and weeks to come, authorities will also be debriefing about what possibly should happen in the future, particularly in large-scale events like this and in places where there are a lot of people. I have seen at different times when there are major events, ambulances being staged throughout the area, for example, in case they do need to respond. It's unclear, at least right now, exactly if that was the case. We know that there are a number of different events going on in the city of Austin that have drawn people to downtown, including the Republic of Texas bike rally. Of course, we don't know at this point, and I want to be clear that there is no indication that we have right now that that event had anything to do with the shooting. I also want to tell you that the investigation itself, Hannah, for APD to conduct such a major investigation like this, that authorities and the police department have also called in detectives from various units. I'm told that the homicide unit is involved in this investigation. Hannah, there's also something that APD has called the aggravated assault unit that are also have been called in to help with this investigation, as well as the gang unit. unit. Of course, Chief Chacon pointing out that the gang unit being called in not only because of their expertise in terms of working investigations, conducting intelligence about where someone may be, but also because they need the extra manpower as well.
And that was interesting too to hear from Taylor, the witness from last night, to talk about kind of the role of the restaurants and the bars downtown. We know this pandemic has been such a roller coaster ride for the folks down there. And of course, you know, there have been shootings on 6th Street before, but of course, this almost just has a different tone to it now that slowly the city is opening up again. Some of these bars are full for the first time in a very long time. And of course, I can only imagine how, you know, some of those vendors and people are feeling this morning, having to kind of navigate something to this extent. I mean, this is making national headlines on this Saturday morning of the amount of people that were shot in downtown Austin. It's just terrible.
And Hannah, obviously, I know we've mentioned this along the way this morning as well as part of our coverage. Obviously, this is going to amplify the discussion about policing in our community, about crime in our community. The chief mentioned, and it is true, that gun violence is on the rise nationally in our country. And Austin police do report that there has been an uptick in violent crime, again, that happening not only in Austin, but cities across the country. But again, this is going to really amplify discussions about how the police can combat gun violence, and frankly, not just the police, how we as a community can come together to try to combat gun violence in our city.
Absolutely, Tony, and still a lot to discuss here. Of course, guys, we're about to send you off to break, but once again, we want to encourage, if you know anything about this shooting and you were there last night, we want to hear from you, and so does the Austin Police Department. We'll be right back.
days. A ridge of high pressure out to our west will continue to slowly move to the north and the west, and that's going to be keeping us dry, at least in regards to our rain chances. Southerly flow at the surface is helping to elevate our dew points, and that's why our feels like temperatures or heat index values are on the rise. Now, we're going to be tracking about a 10% chance for showers starting tomorrow, well into the majority of your work week. But the main weather story is it's going to be hot, it's going to be humid, and we're not going to be getting a lot of relief in regards to rainfall. That heat index for today is expected to climb into the triple digits. That's going to be the weather story for the next several days into your work week as well. So please make sure you're staying hydrated and taking breaks if you're spending long periods of time outdoors. Temperatures on the thermometers climbing into the mid 90s. That's around average. 93 degrees is the average this time of year. Mostly sunny skies as we go into the afternoon. And for that reason, we do have an 11, which is very high on the UV index for today. So once again, make sure you're wearing appropriate clothing and using sunscreen and staying hydrated and reducing that exposure to the sun. Allergy count, trees in the medium, weeds are on the low side, but grass and mold, including alternaria, are on the high side for today. You can always stay up to date with that information in the KVUE app and in the Austin American Statesman. As you take a look at that 7-day forecast, we are going to be staying hot. Temperatures not fluctuating too much, and those heat index values flirting around that 100-degree mark. Now, keep in mind, we will track about a 10% chance for an isolated shower. That is going to linger not only Sunday, but into Monday, Tuesday, stretching all the way into Thursday, the end of your work week. Notice those overnight lows, they're going to be in the mid 70s, so it is going to be fairly muggy in the overnight period. Those temperatures, they are no joke, and they will not be, like I said, changing that much. Mid to upper 90s as we go into the afternoon for each and every day as we go throughout the rest of the work week.
Certainly a hot one out there. Thank you, Mr. Shane Hinton there. We are, of course, continuing to bring you our top story this morning. Everything we know about a mass shooting overnight. We're looking right now, taking a live look at 6th Street on this Saturday morning as police continue to search for the gunman. Once again, this suspect is still on the loose this morning. We want to break down everything we know so far. The first 911 call came in at 1:24 a.m. for multiple shots fired on East 6th Street near Trinity Street. Police believe there were only 3 victims at first, but then learned at least 13 people were shot. 2 of them are in critical condition. The other 11 seem that they are going to be okay.
And authorities are telling us, Hannah, at this point that there is no motive at this time. The shooter, as you mentioned, is on the loose. There is a search for that person right now. And we don't know, according to authorities, if there is one or more shooters at this time. That is all part of the investigation. But Hannah, based on the witnesses we've been able to talk to this morning, they are telling us that they believe that there was only one shooter because of the rapid nature of the gunshots that were being fired. One of those witnesses telling us that he can't imagine that more than one person had a gun because it was just there were so many shots being fired in rapid succession. Again, authorities telling us that 1 minute people were having a good time. There was music playing loudly along 6th Street, of course, the heart of the city's entertainment district, followed by gunfire within moments, and again, people falling to the pavement, falling to the sidewalk, falling to the street as they were struck by gunfire.
Just heartbreaking and very hard to watch some of that chaotic video from last night. And of course, our main concern right now, we want to check in on how the victims are doing. Right now, Tori Larnett is actually outside the hospital where some of the victims were taken. Good morning, Tori.
Hey, good morning, Hannah. Yeah, as of now, we have no word yet on an update on the victims inside 2 hospitals in the area. However, the good news is, as of now, nobody has died. However, 2 people are in critical condition. Another 2 have serious injuries, but they are expected to be okay. Now, this is thanks to the efforts of many people downtown last night that rushed into action to get these people the care they need. I'm talking about EMS getting on scene, Austin police responding very rapidly, and even people using their private cars to get these victims, all 13 of them, to the hospital. Now, we've talked all morning long about the congestion in downtown Austin. Well, I spoke on the phone with Austin Travis County EMS. They said they got their first ambulance there at about 1:33 a.m. That is less than 10 minutes after those 911 calls came in. So the official on the phone told me that he believed they responded rapidly, but there were 13 people who needed help, and there was a lot of congestion. So getting the rest of those ambulances ambulances there did take time, and that is where Austin Police Department stepped in to help, as well as those people driving the victims with their private cars. Now, Austin EMS also activated their urgent response, meaning they sent at least 5 ambulances, 5 commanders, and 5 other personnel, and even more than that, to help control the situation, make sure everybody got the care they needed. Everyone is at the hospital right now getting treatment. One person was also actually taken to urgent care by a private car. APD chief or interim chief Joseph Chacon says it is because of the training of first aid and the use of tourniquets that APD officers were able to step up and provide this care. Again, I am reaching out to all the hospitals in the area to try to get you the latest. But if you have any information for me, or if you have any concerns, please reach out to me and I will keep pushing for answers to make sure all these victims are okay. For now, I'll send it back to you in studio.
Thank you so much, Tori Larned, live out the hospitals. And of course, we have our team coverage this morning covering every angle of this, Tony.
Absolutely. People waking up to this news this morning. Again, 13 people shot and injured in downtown Austin. And Hannah, one of the things, too, that this is going to really renew is a conversation about safety along 6th Street. Of course, 6th Street over the years and in recent years has been the scene to several other significant shootings. One in 2016 in which one person was shot and killed. 4 others were seriously injured. That was in the summer of 2016. So several years ago, but obviously these types of things are not unheard of in the city's entertainment district. And Hannah, what authorities will tell you is that one thing that is of note about 6th Street is that it draws not only people from across the community who want to go and party and celebrate, but also tourists from throughout the nation and throughout the world, for that matter. Of course, over the years, we've seen a number of major incidences there. Of course, I mentioned the shooting. There was also during South by Southwest some years ago, a person in a car drove through a crowd on 6th Street or near that area. So again, as you get people in that area, unfortunately, a consequence of that is that you can see incidences like this happening throughout the community.
I mean, when people come to town, that's the first place a lot of them go, or if you bring friends or whatever it is. I mean, I was doing a story out at Barton Springs yesterday, and I have not seen a crowd like that in so long, Tony, and I think it's just a testament that people are out again. I know earlier today we talked about, Circuit of the Americas, and some of these large venues are, of course, hosting these events again. Live music is coming back. People are back in our city again, and I think when we look at that video and how chaotic it was, I really haven't seen 6th Street like that in a long time.
But we know historically Austin police have maintained always, particularly on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, significant police presence on 6th Street. Officers obviously on foot, on bicycles, on horseback at different times with patrol cars in the area, but not necessarily on the street. And again, Hannah, as I was mentioning earlier, this is going to prompt emergency officials to look at this area again to see if there are deployment strategies that potentially they need to evaluate and modify because of what is happening in this area. And as the chief has mentioned, and as other people have mentioned as well, there simply is an increase in gun violence, not only in Austin, but across the country. And as we know this morning, our local leaders, Hannah, are waking up to this news as well.
Absolutely. And we are actually going to hear from those local leaders right when we come back. But we want to hear from you, too. If you were downtown last night and you think you saw something, tweet at us, let us know, and we'll be right back. Everything we know so far, 13 people shot. The first 911 call came in at 1:24 a.m. for multiple shots fired on East 6th Street near Trinity Street. Police believe there were only 3 victims at first, but then learned at least 13 people were shot. 2 of them are in critical condition. The other 11 seem to be doing okay. We do not know a motive at this time. The shooter has not been found. We also don't know if there is more than one shooter. Anyone with information, of course, should call police if you were downtown and think you saw anything. And of course, like many of you, local leaders are waking up this morning learning more about what is going on, and it's almost hard to fathom everything. But Bryce Newberry has heard from some members of City Council. He is actually live on 6th Street near where the shooting happened. Bryce, what has council said so far?
Yeah, Hannah, good morning. We've reached out to several council members. So far, the first elected leader that we are hearing from is one of the very vocal supporters of the Austin Police Department, Councilmember Mackenzie Kelly of District 6. I do want to read you this very long statement that she just shared with us moments ago. Since early this morning, the Austin Police Department has been investigating the horrific mass shooting on 6th Street. At this time, there are numerous shooting victims, including 2 with injuries that are life-threatening. We hold those who have been injured and their families in our prayers today, and we also pray for the recoveries of those injured. We are grateful for the swift response of law enforcement and stand with them as they continue their investigation. Let there be no question, she says, this despicable and cowardly act of gun violence only steals our commitment to making Austin lead the nation in being the safest city in America. No community should ever experience what occurred this morning in Austin. We urge anyone with information to step forward so those responsible are held accountable. That is the first elected leader that we are hearing from this morning. Again, Councilmember Mackenzie Kelly with that statement. We've reached out to several others, including Councilmember Kassar, Councilmember Kitchen, as well as Austin Mayor Steve Adler. We're waiting to hear back from them, and of course we will share that with you once we hear those responses. You know, like all of us, we are waking up and finding out this news this morning, and we have listened to that audio, the scanner traffic audio of those first responders who were here on the scene. It took about 20 minutes from when they first arrived until they finally were able to say the victims, they didn't have any other victims to respond to here. But it took a long time. It was chaos in this stretch of 6th Street while they were trying to make sure that everyone was safe and taken to the hospital. Again, as we've been reporting this morning, some of them were taken via ambulance, but more of them were taken by the police in the police cars, and others took themselves to the hospital. So this morning, still a lot of questions. I do want to reiterate what we know about the suspect. It's a very vague description that we've been given. That was by the police at 4 o'clock this morning. They say that it's a black male who was wearing a black shirt with dreadlocks and has a skinny build. So that's what we were given. We realized that that is a very vague description of the suspect, and it could be a lot of different people. But we did want to pass that along as the police and FBI investigate this morning. Hannah and Tony?
Thank you so much. Bryce Newberry live on 6th Street near exactly where this shooting happened. And of course, overnight, Interim Police Chief Joseph Chacon gave an update on the events of last night and everything that they are looking for. Once again, we want to emphasize this suspect is still on the loose, but we do want to replay it for you this morning, that press conference. Again, this is from earlier this morning. You can take a listen here.
My name is Joseph Chacon. I'm the Interim Chief of Police for the Austin Police Department. We're here today to go ahead and give a briefing on an incident that has occurred this morning in our 6th Street Entertainment District area. Just to give a little bit of background, 6th Street on a Friday night is very busy. The streets are barricaded, and we have large crowds. We're seeing crowds like we have seen prior to COVID, and they're very they're in the street and very active. So this was around 1:30 in the morning, and I'll just go through a timeline that will provide a little perspective on what happened tonight. At 1:24 a.m., Austin 911 received a call of shots fired in the area. Initially, we had a report of 3 victims, and then as this incident unfolded, the number of victims, it became clear that there were many, many victims in this incident. Multiple 911 calls began coming in at that point. Fire and EMS were also notified and were asked to respond, but to stage until we could make the scene safe. At 1:26 a.m., we were able to obtain a suspect description. I'll give this description. It is not very detailed, just based on the chaotic nature of the incident this evening. But it is a black male wearing a black shirt with a skinny build and with dreadlocks, dreadlock type hair. At 1:27, 4 to 5 more patients had been called in, and one of them had very serious injuries. At 1:28, as the crowd is starting to disperse at this point, we are trying to get people coordinated for witnesses to make the scene safe. And what became very clear early on in this incident is that our officers responded very quickly. They were able to immediately begin life-saving measures for many of these patients, including applications of tourniquets, applications of chest seals, and other types of first aid equipment that they carry on their person. And I'm happy to report that at this moment we do not have any persons that are deceased. We do have 2 patients that are in critical condition. We have a total of 11 people that were transported to one hospital. 1 person was transported to a different hospital, and then 1 person reported to an urgent care clinic with multiple gunshot wounds. So there's a total at this point that we're aware of 13 victims that have been shot in this incident. As this incident was unfolding, and officers, because of the nature, again, very large crowds, it was very difficult to contain the scene. It was very difficult for EMS to make their way into this crowd. And because of the nature of the injuries, officers had to go ahead and use their police vehicles to put some of these shooting victims into the vehicles and transport them themselves to the hospital so that they could get the urgent care that they needed. Fire and EMS did manage to make their way, and we had a total of 6 patients that were transported by police, 4 were transported by EMS, and then 3 patients transported themselves in a personal vehicle. So at this point, we're reviewing all of the video sources that we have. We have our Halo public safety camera system downtown. We have officers with their body-worn cameras, as well as many businesses have surveillance video in this area, and all of those video sources will be reviewed. Our aggravated assault and homicide unit detectives are out here investigating at this time, as well as members of our organized crime and our gang units, from that perspective, to see if this incident was gang-related or what other type of motive there might have been in this shooting incident. It's not clear at this point what sparked this off or why this happened, but out of an abundance of caution, we have notified the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, which comes out on active shooter type scenarios in order to help with those investigations, and they are on the scene as well. What we're asking for at this point is for anyone that might have information on this, might have been down here and either witnessed something, or if video was taken that's on a cell phone owned by somebody in our in our community for them to go ahead and contact us. You can either call 911 or you can call our tip line at 512-472-TIPS. That is about as much information as I have on this incident right now. It is very fresh and we're still have the area shut down. It will be shut down for quite a few hours. It is a large crime scene, and I'm very grateful at this point that we do not have more people that are deceased. I do believe that it was the actions of our officers who responded very quickly and have been trained in life-saving measures, including use of their first aid kits and tourniquets that they carry on their person to be able to quickly apply that first aid and help people that were in serious injury, serious distress. Up here I have also with me people from the FBI, from the Austin Fire Department, from EMS, and then other folks here from the Austin Police Department. That is all of my prepared comments at this point. Like I said, this is still a pretty new incident and very unfolding at this point, but I will take a few questions if there's anything that I can answer.
Was the shooting all in one spot, or was it spread across multiple?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that I forgot to mention is the exact location where this occurred. It occurred in the 400 block of East 6th Street. And so that, it seems to be isolated at this point, but that is something that's still being investigated.
As a police officer, what's going through your mind when this kind of scenario happens?
Obviously, the first thing is trying to save people's lives, as well as identify a suspect and get that person into custody. I think that we did the first part and we're working on the second part right now.
Have all the suspects been caught, and is the public in any danger right now?
I would say that the public, I cannot say that there's no further public danger at this point because the suspect is not in custody. So it appears at this point to be isolated to this one area, but as we receive more information on that, we'll put it out. Yes.
Is there possibly any connection to the Rot Rally being in town?
The Rot Rally is here, and that does bring in large crowds. I don't have any information right now that it's directly related to that.
Is there any chance potential shutdown 6th or tighten up security around 6th Street this weekend, or possibly throughout the summer after?
Security is always pretty good down here because of the way that we cordon off the streets, block off the streets, using barricades and try to keep people safe that way. We have a lot of officers that are assigned to our downtown area command and that actually work in this area. There's a high visible presence of officers. We try to keep it as safe as we can, but what we have seen in recent months and over the last year or so is an increase in our gun violence. And so this is just emblematic of that. It continues, and it's something that we're really trying to work to decrease.
I'm sorry, could you tell me just a few of the factors of why the FBI were called in on this?
Anytime that we have a potential of an active shooter or a scene that might be there might be a domestic terrorism nexus, we call them in. At this point, I don't know that that is the case. It cannot be ruled out, and therefore we call them in early on so that they come early on in the investigation.
Do you have an idea of how many shooters there were, or how many gunmen there were?
No, not at this point.
Or that what caliber of weapon they used?
Don't know that at this point. No, don't know that at this point.
Just to recheck again, you said how many victims was it again total?
So we have a total of 13 victims. 11 are at one hospital, we have one at a different hospital, and then one at an urgent care clinic. At this time, no, but we do have 2 that are in critical condition. we always tell people when they're in large crowds like this, when they come down to the entertainment district, to just be vigilant, to take care, to take the type of steps that you would want them to take, that we would want them to take to keep themselves safe, including, being with other people, and to just be very aware, have a plan if you are going to be drinking on how you're going to get home, those type of things. But we try to create a safe environment for them.
Do you know how many officers were downtown on 6th Street when this happened?
I don't have the exact number right now.
Last question. Was the gentleman that was laying on the ground by the cone in that one scene, was he a victim of this?
So we had multiple victims that at one point or another were laid on the ground. So that's when our officers were applying, like I said, the life-saving measures, and ultimately we got them all transported. Thank you all very much.
And of course, we're going to continue to follow this throughout the morning. That was Interim Police Chief Joseph Chacon from overnight. Austin Mayor Steve Adler has just released a statement. It reads, "We thank our community's law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS personnel for a quick response on 6th Street. We are fortunate not to have any fatalities, but remain concerned for the two individuals in critical condition. We are now focused on catching the suspect. We urge you to please call 911 or the APD tip line if you think you have relevant information." The uptick in gun violence locally is part of a disturbing rise in gun violence across the country as we exit the pandemic. APD and the City Council have initiated multiple violence prevention efforts in response, but this crisis requires a broader, coordinated response from all levels of government. One thing is clear: greater access to firearms does not equal greater public safety. And again, here is everything we know on this mass shooting. Police received calls for shots fired just before 1:30 this morning on East 6th Street near Trinity Street. 13 people were injured. 11 of them are expected to be okay, and 2 of them are in critical condition. The gunman has not been found. Again, the shooter is still at large. So if you have any information to help police, or you think you saw something that has happened, please give them a call. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
We are forecasting the hottest weekend of 2021 so far in Central Texas. As we scan the skies, we're not coming up with any precipitation, nor will we for really a majority of your extended forecast. Temperatures on the thermometer reading anywhere from the mid to upper 70s. The only exception are my friends out there in LaGrange. You're currently sitting at 82 degrees. Now, what does it actually feel like? Well, it's already feeling like 92 degrees out in LaGrange, 80 in Austin. As you make your way out to Llano, we're talking 82 is what it already feels like due to those elevated dew points. Why are we seeing some of this hot stretch of weather? Well, it's because we have a ridge of high pressure that's building into our west. It's going to continue building in and intensifying, eventually moving a little bit further to the west, but that's still going to keep us on the dry side, at least in regard to rain chances. In fact, for your extended forecast, the highest rain chances I have are about a 10% chance starting tomorrow for your Sunday, stretching all the way through the duration of your work week. Now notice that high pressure system is going to pretty much linger off to our northwest for a majority of the forecast period. At the surface, though, we're seeing that moisture that's streaming in from the Gulf of Mexico, and that's why we're seeing elevated dew points. Now, this dry pattern is going to remain, as I mentioned, for really the rest of your forecast period, so you're not going to need the rain gear, but you are going to need to stay hydrated. In fact, that heat index is expected to jump right back up into the triple digits once again today and should continue to do so throughout the next several days. So it's going to be important to make sure you're staying hydrated, make sure you're taking long breaks, or if you're spending extended periods of time outdoors. Temperatures on the thermometer this afternoon will read into the mid 90s. A few of us could be in the upper 90s. We could be flirting with 100 degrees for some isolated areas. The average high this time of year is around 93 degrees, so we're not too far off from that. If you are spending time outdoors today, keep in mind the UV index is an 11, which is very high, so make sure you wear that sunscreen in addition to staying hydrated. Now, your allergy count is looking medium for trees, weeds on the low end, but grass and mold both in the high category once again. And yes, there was alternaria on that slide. You can always stay up to date with that information in the KVUE News app and the Austin American-Statesman. We do also want to keep you updated on the tropics. We do have about a 30% chance of development for an area we are monitoring out over the Gulf of Mexico that could be potentially developing as we go throughout the next 5 days. Now, forecast models have shown that if it does stick together, it will make a trek to the north of the Gulf of Mexico. So we will continue to monitor this closely, but right now only about a 30% chance of development. Your 7-day forecast is looking hot and muggy, mostly dry with your rain chances. Only about a 10% chance for each and every day starting tomorrow. We'll be right back with more updates after the break.
all throughout the morning. More than a dozen people are in the hospital this morning after that shooting, and at least one suspect is still on the loose.
Take a look at your screen now. We've just got new video from that location. Again, this happening along 6th Street, and you can see those Austin police officers running to the scene, as well as ambulances loading patients into those units to drive them to the hospital. Again, we've been hearing stories overnight about how EMS transported several of those victims to the hospital. But in addition to that, Austin police officers loading some of the victims into their patrol cars and taking them to the hospital as well. You can see a large area there along 6th Street. Again, this happening around 1:30 in the morning. That large area cordoned off by yellow police tape as authorities swarmed the scene.
Anyone that is downtown around this time, you know there's typically a lot of commotion right at 1:30, about 30 minutes before those bars release everybody out there. And of course, we also saw, a lot of motorcycles there too. It's important to know for context, there was a large gathering yesterday, of course, out at Circuit of the Americas for the Rot Rally, a couple different things going on, some live music again. So people are out and about again. And we want to get an idea of what things look like this morning. Quite a different scene after that commotion. Right now, we're actually going to head over to KVUE's Bryce Newberry. He is live on 6th Street. Bryce, I know you're helping us out a lot this morning with gathering information. How's it going now?
Well, Hannah and Tony, good morning. Those motorcycles that you were just mentioning, Hannah, they're actually right here. Some of them are still left here this morning, but 6th Street, it's back open. Traffic is flowing this morning. The barricades are still out here that APD normally uses to shut down this street at night for the large crowds. There are just some remnants of some crime scene tape from their major investigation that happened overnight. I do want to take you to some video from the scene. You can see some of that chaos. We've listened to the dispatch and the scanner audio from what happened last night. It took about 20 minutes for those medics to completely secure the scene and locate all of the victims and get them to safety. So when they first arrived until they finally said they have 0 victims, and it was just minute by minute while listening to that audio, they said, we found another one, we have another one, and indicating different areas of the body where those people were injured by the gunfire. So they were very busy, as Tony mentioned, getting people out of this area. And with all of the people who are normally down in this area at night, that obviously adds to a little bit of chaos with the first responders who are trying to weave in and out and get where they need to go to help people. We did hear from the interim police chief, Joseph Chacon, overnight. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Security is always pretty good down here because of the way that we cordon off the streets, block off the streets, using barricades and try to keep people safe that way. We have a lot of officers that are assigned to our downtown area command and that actually work in this area. There's a high visible presence of officers. We try to keep it as safe as we can, but what we have seen in recent months and over the last year or so is an increase in our gun violence. And so this is just emblematic of that. It continues, and it's something that we're really trying to work to decrease.
His mention of gun violence there is something that Austin Mayor Steve Adler is also bringing attention to this morning. He just released a statement not long ago mentioning that the rise in gun violence that we're seeing here in Austin is similar to trends that are being seen across the country. I do want to get to the issue still, though, because there is a gunman who has not been caught, possibly one or more. Police did provide a description of that suspect overnight, the one that they have, and it's very vague. I want to point that out. They're telling us that there is one suspect that was described as a black male with dreadlocks, wearing a black shirt and a skinny build. And of course, we realize that could be a lot of different people. That doesn't give anything really definitive to help identify that person, but they are asking for any information, any videos, so that they can locate this person. And hopefully all of these victims, again, 2 of them in critical condition, will be able to recover this morning. Hannah and Tony, back to you.
Thank you, Bryce. And I know we mentioned some of those motorcycles. I can literally hear some of them what sounds like retrieving their motorcycles this morning. Once again, it's 9 a.m. This incident happened around 1:30. And, you know, police once again are still kind of learning the context of that. But something we do know for sure is there was a large presence of people with their motorcycles last night, as we can see.
Absolutely. And Hannah, this will amplify discussions not only about gun violence in our community and across the country. We're hearing and seeing that right now, several hours, about 8 hours after this happened. Also, it is likely to renew conversations about safety on 6th Street. Hannah, this is the biggest, I've mentioned this earlier, this is the biggest mass casualty incident that Austin has seen on 6th Street since the South by Southwest crash of 2014. Hannah, when a man plowed through the crowd, injuring up to 30 people, killing 4 of them.
Terrible.
Also in 2016, we saw another shooting in downtown Austin on 6th Street in which 4 people were shot and injured. 1 person was killed.
And that's the thing about 6th Street is when something like that happens and people are running around, I mean, it is chaotic. It's hard to get around. And as they said, they have some of those roads blocked off. People are coming in and out of the bars. There's lines. I mean,
people in close quarters.
It's hectic.
Yeah, shoulder to shoulder.
And so I can only imagine, you know, what that was like. And we spoke with that gentleman earlier, and even Interim Chief Chacon, you can kind of just see it in his face, just shaken up. It's been a really long night, and knowing the suspect is still on the loose, I think is really just kind of adding that sense of urgency right now.
And Hannah, with regard to that gun violence in our community, I did actually just within the last few minutes get some statistics. They have risen, according to Austin Police, from 689 in 2015 to more than 1,000 in 2020. And I've got some other statistics that we can talk about later with regard to overall violence in our community as well. But Hannah, as recently as May, the Austin City Council passed a resolution just last month to begin efforts and to intensify efforts related to gun violence and prevention programs. The mayor has said that he believes that this is an effort that will not only, of course, involve law enforcement, but the community as a whole coming together, sitting at the table to try to come up with strategies to reduce the violence that is happening in our city.
A lot of leaders speaking out on this right now, but something we also very much want to check in as frequently as we can is these victims, guys.
Absolutely.
We're talking about 13 people that were shot downtown. These videos just horrific, and we are also learning more about the status of that. And actually, KVUE's Tori Larnett is outside the hospital right now giving us those updates. Good morning, Tori.
Good morning, Hannah. Good morning, Tony. Yeah, I've been in contact with the hospitals these victims went to all morning long. They say they are running around trying to get the latest update on these victims for me. But as of now, it remains the same. We have 13 people who were injured. Luckily, no deaths right now. We hope it stays that way, but there are 2 people in critical condition. There's another 2 people who are seriously hurt, although they do not have life-threatening injuries. They are expected to be okay. I spoke with Austin Travis County EMS on the phone. They tell me that they were the ones who transported both those critically hurt people and the seriously injured. So they got great care on the way to the hospital. But as we talked about, these victims got transported in a variety of ways. The Austin Police Department took some of them in their own police units, and also bystanders or people at the scene took their own private cars to get people to the hospital. Now, despite this craziness of downtown Austin that Hannah and Tony, you were talking about, it's just a typical Friday morning, but Austin Travis County EMS says they still were able to get to the scene within 10 minutes. It was actually about 9 minutes when that first ambulance got on the scene to help these victims. They also kicked in their urgent response, which means they sent at least 15 units, including ambulances, commanders, and other units to help these victims and to help with the situation. Now, you heard from Austin Police Chief, Interim Chief Joseph Chacon. He says it was also the officers who had the first aid training and the tourniquet training that were able to step up, organize the scene, and make sure that these victims got the care they needed. So let's hear from him now.
I do believe that it was the actions of our officers who responded very quickly and have been trained in life-saving measures, including use of their first aid kits and tourniquets that they carry on their person to be able to quickly apply that first aid and help people that were in serious injury, serious distress. Up here.
We do know that 11 people were taken to one hospital, one taken to another. We're still trying to confirm those hospitals. And finally, the last person was actually taken to an urgent care. Again, I am in contact with these hospitals, trying to get you an update. I hope that it's coming very soon. For now, I'll toss it back to you in studio.
Thank you so much, Tori Larned, live outside of the hospital for us. And of course, throughout the morning, we're going to continue to show you these videos. But Tony, for a second, I want to talk about social media once again. This is playing a huge part in this investigation, as we do have this suspect at large. You and I all morning have been, messaging some of these people that are tweeting out about this. One gentleman going on Facebook Live. And I want to say, I think a lot of people last night were kind of caught off guard. We're talking about, we've been doing a lot of stories about sort of this reopening, this wave of people going back out again. And I think just from what I've seen in the last few days, sort of, joy of people being happy to be out again. And I think that last night this didn't come into anyone's mind. I think everyone was happy to be on 6th again, seeing that rustle and bustle and everyone out and the music. And I think that probably added a new level of fear last night when people were 1:30 in the morning.
And again, you can see in some of these videos too, people having a good time around 1:20 in the morning. And from what has been described to me from people who have seen some of the more graphic video in this case that we are not obviously airing, but that people one moment, Hannah, are having a great time. Seconds later, you hear a barrage, a hail of gunfire, and you literally see people falling to the concrete, to the street, to the sidewalk after realizing that they were shot and after being shot. Hannah, I want to talk about the search for the shooter in this case, because it is a large-scale effort involving not only the Austin Police Department, which is coordinating the investigation, but we know that the FBI is also working in some capacity with law enforcement as well. Hannah, right now, a number of detectives from not only the APD homicide unit, but also the aggravated assault unit, as well as the gang unit of the Austin Police Department, are doing what they can to interview anyone who might have information. But to your point about video, obviously, social media video may have captured something. There are halo cameras, public safety cameras in that area that have been in place for a number of years. So obviously, detectives combing through every frame, every second of that video, Hannah, to try to figure out if they can learn who the gunman is. But based on the experience that I have in covering things like this that have happened, somebody knows something out there, and it's only a matter of time, really, before a person either comes forward or police using a variety of different ways, investigatory steps that they will be taking to find the gunman.
And that's even the conversations we're having. Of course, after an incident like that, you're very shaken up. Whether you did do a Facebook Live or take a quick picture, it can be kind of intimidating you are now sort of a part of the investigation. You were there, you were a witness, you put it on social media. And so some people, I think, can be hesitant at first to come forward with that. And that's, once again, that's something we're doing this morning, is kind of just sifting through. So please, once again, let us know. But we do want to show you, actually, and Tony, you got this video this morning, but we want to warn you of all these videos. This could be graphic. I mean, we are talking about a mass shooting here.
We're doing the best we can to kind of sort through things, obviously, and use editorial judgment before putting them on television.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, to your point, this is a mass shooting with 13 people being shot in our community. So here is that video.
Get to the night bar. Have a drink and a thing, please. Appreciate y'all. Please, everybody. It's okay, organize, chill.
As you can see, their officers are actually giving CPR to at least one person in the video. People down on the ground. Just a very hectic scene there. We are going to continue to follow this throughout the morning, and we want to hear from you. So go ahead and stay with us, and we'll be right back.
of the year so far. Yes, once again, triple-digit heat index values are expected for the weekend, and rain chances are remaining low, which is great news if you have some outdoor plans. Notice as we scan the skies, we're not coming up with any activity. In fact, just tracking mostly sunny skies and temperatures already in the lower 80s for a majority of central Texas. 81 currently in Austin and in Georgetown. Similar conditions out in Llano. 83 in LaGrange is the warmest that we're tracking right now. And as you make your way to the Hill Country, 75 in Fredericksburg and 78 in Mason. Now that wind is continuing to blow in from the south, fairly calm. We're not expecting any blustery conditions for today. But the reason we point this out is that southerly flow is helping to increase our dew point values. We've been seeing this the past several days. In fact, some would even argue that these are lower than some of the dew points we've been tracking for the past couple of days. 78 in LaGrange, 72-degree dew points in Austin. Keep in mind that this is still above the tropical category for a majority. The only exception are my friends out there in Fredericksburg. You're currently sitting at 69. So this is what it feels like as you step outside. 85 is what it feels like in Austin. A little bit warmer down in San Marcos at 86, but it already feels like it is 92 degrees out in LaGrange. So it's going to be another muggy one today, folks. In fact, expect triple-digit heat index values to remain once again. So keep in mind that's your feels like temperature. What do you need to plan for in regards to what you're going to wear and how hydrated you need to stay? So triple-digit heat index values are expected not only for today, but for tomorrow as well. Temperatures on the thermometer are expected to climb into the mid-90s. Keep in mind the average high this time of year is around 93 degrees. Mostly sunny skies are expected not only for today, but also for Sunday. So it's going to be very important that you use sunscreen, especially due to the fact that today's UV index is at an 11. That is very high. So make sure you're applying that SPF, you are wearing the appropriate clothing, and you're taking breaks if you're spending long, extended periods of time outdoors. Now your allergy count for today, trees are back in the medium, weeds back on the low side, but grass and mold unfortunately are still on the high side with Alternaria on the slide. So if you do have allergy medication, you might need to keep that nearby. You can always stay up to date with that information both in the KVUE News app and in the Austin American-Statesman. Overnight tonight, we are going to be talking about temperatures that are in the lower to mid 70s. So it is going to be a warm one overall, but believe it or not too far off from our average of around 73 degrees. Let's take a look at the upper levels of the atmosphere. This is what we're going to be tracking that's going to be keeping us on that warm trajectory for the rest of your weekend and into the work week. We have a ridge of high pressure that's building into the west. It's going to continue building in. Notice it kind of makes a trek up to the north. This is going to be keeping us on the dry side and our feels like temperatures staying in the triple digits. Notice that our temperatures will be anywhere from the mid to upper 90s as we go throughout your Sunday into Monday. Tuesday, expect conditions to still stay dry. You see we might have some of that northerly flow as that high pressure system moves a little bit further to the north. This is going to give us only about a 10% chance for isolated showers and thunderstorms. No severe weather is expected, but notice that 10% is going to extend from Sunday all the way through Wednesday and into Thursday as well. In fact, I'm not tracking any significant weather systems that are expected to bring rain to central Texas. Now, we are continuing to track the tropics for you here in the Storm Track Center. What we are noticing about a 30% chance of development over the next 5 days. We are going to continue to monitor that for you. 7-day forecast is looking hot and muggy, only a 10% chance for showers. We'll be right back after the break.
This is new video of police investigating. We know 13 people were injured in a shooting that happened just before 1:30 this morning on East 6th Street near Trinity Street. 11 people are expected to be okay. 2 are in critical condition. And it has been hours since shots were fired on 6th Street, but KVUE's Bryce Newberry is live on 6th Street right now. Bryce, what are you seeing now that the sun is up? I know a little bit ago we heard some motorcycles. Tell us what you know now.
Well, Hannah, good morning. Now about 8 hours after this shooting started, it doesn't really seem like there was a shooting here. Traffic is flowing. The street is back open. There are still motorcycles that are parked here from last night. And really, there's not a lot that points out that there was a shooting here, other than the fact that the barriers that APD normally uses to block off the streets for all of the crowds. Well, some of the barriers do have crime scene tape still stuck to them this morning. But other than that, it's really hard to tell that there was anything that happened down here last night. Some people who are just waking up and coming out either for their morning coffee walk or a run, a little bit surprised at all of the media attention that's down here, but really no more police activity that we're seeing this morning. Hannah.
Thank you, Bryce Newberry, for us there, and certainly a shock, Tony. I mean, this is of course a national story, and I think even people that live on 6th Street, if they may have slept through this, are shocked.
Yeah, and obviously everyone is waking up this morning. Hannah, I think one of the most miraculous aspects of what has happened is that fortunately no one has perished in what happened overnight. But again, 13 people shot and injured. And now, like many of you, local leaders are also, Hannah, waking up this morning to this awful news in our city.
Austin City Council member Mackenzie Kelly released a statement, and we are going to get back to that as soon as we return from the break. We have a lot more to talk about, guys. Stay with us. City Council member Mackenzie Kelly released the following statement this morning. Since early this morning, the Austin Police Department has been investigating the horrific mass shooting on 6th Street. At this time, there are numerous shooting victims, including 2 with injuries that are life-threatening. We hold those who have been injured and their families in our prayers today, and we also pray for the recoveries of those injured. We are grateful for the swift response of law enforcement and stand with them as they continue their investigation. Let there be no question, this despicable and cowardly act of gun violence only steals our commitment to making Austin lead the nation and being the safest city in America. No community should ever experience what occurred this morning in Austin. We urge anyone with information to step forward so those responsible are held accountable.
And Austin Mayor Steve Adler released a statement as well. He says, quote, "We thank our community's law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS personnel for a quick response on 6th Street. We are fortunate to have not had any fatalities, but remain concerned for the 2 individuals in critical condition. We are now focused on catching the suspect. We urge you to please call 911 or the APD tip line if you think you have relevant information. The uptick in gun violence locally is part of a disturbing rise in gun violence across the country as we exit the pandemic. APD and the Austin City Council have initiated multiple violence prevention efforts in response, but this crisis requires a broader, coordinated response from all levels of government. One thing the mayor says is clear: greater access to firearms does not equal greater public safety.
Right now, here is a live look at 6th Street now that the sun is up hours after shots were fired. Traffic is moving slowly, certainly a different scene compared to last night. I still just get chills thinking about last night, Tony, and seeing the video compared to now and knowing what everyone's feeling. And this is video of those officers
literally running to the scene with the reports of gunfire. Hannah, this started with, of course, 911 calls. We've been listening to some of the scanner traffic as well, with people reporting that there were shots fired. But it apparently took some minutes for Austin police to really recognize the significance and the severity of what was unfolding again, Hannah, on 6th Street, teeming with thousands of people as we exit the pandemic, as the mayor said, and as people really are hungry to begin resuming normal life.
And as we've been saying throughout the morning, you know, historically, 6th Street, especially as things get warmer into the summertime, and now that, you know, more people are vaccinated, people are back out there again, and there was a heavier presence already in place there. But of course, nobody expected something like this to happen. And as you can imagine, that shooting created chaos for the people downtown at those bars. We saw officers running. We actually have some of the audio from the 911 calls.
And we do want to warn you that you might find some of this audio and some of the video that we are going to be showing and airing disturbing. Of course, we are trying to use our editorial judgment, but we also want to get you information as quickly as we can. Here's some of that scanner traffic.
Yes, EMS coming to 6th Street. We have 2 people down, gunshot wounds, 1 to the abdomen, 1 to the leg. Dispatch, make that the 3rd one, 1 to the hip. Street, we have 3 patients. We have 2 tourniquets applied. Dispatch for prevention, upgrade that to 7 gunshot wounds, 1 CPR in progress.
Bruce, you're going to be called to active attack. Stand by.
We've got another victim at 5th and Trinity with a gunshot wound to the ankle. We have 7 patients. Gunshot wounds, 1 CPR in progress. We are in front of 406 East 6th Street.
All units responding to the GSW. We are upgrading this to an active attack.
Just frightening.
And Hannah, of course, we've been sharing reaction from people and some of our city officials as we get it. I do want to share with you just within the last few minutes. Austin City Councilwoman Vanessa Fuentes shared this on Twitter. She says, "I'm horrified to learn about last night's downtown shooting. While the details of the shooting are still coming in," she says, "Hannah, it is clear that we have a gun violence crisis on our hands and that her heart goes out to all who have been affected by this tragedy tragedy. So as we've been saying, what has happened in our community, in our city, in the prime spot for the entertainment district is clearly going to amplify and continue the ongoing discussion, what was already the ongoing discussion in Austin about the significant rise over the past 5 years in gun violence.
After what's already been such a tough year, and especially for those people that I think we're looking forward to having a presence out there. And now, I mean, this is something we're going to be dealing with for weeks to come. And something, of course, we want to check in as soon as we can is those 13 people, guys, 13 were injured. And we actually want to get the latest on that. Tori Larned has been great helping us out this morning. She is outside the hospital. Tori, how's everything going?
Hey, good morning, Hannah. Yeah, I'm trying my best to keep things updated right now. I did speak to a spokesperson for St. David's Healthcare. They told me they received one victim at St. David's South Austin Medical Center, and they are in fair condition right now. I also spoke to someone here at Del Seaton Medical Center. They said they are working to get us the latest on these victims. As you can see, though, all these victims spread out to 2 hospitals, and one more even went to an urgent care. I think that kind of describes the chaos overnight. As you mentioned, Austin Police Department, Austin Travis County EMS, and even people who were willing to use their private cars all drove people to the hospital. Right now, there are 2 people in critical condition, 2 in serious condition who are expected to be okay. Of course, we're trying to learn more about the people in critical condition. And Austin Travis County EMS told me they are the ones who transported those individuals to the hospital. Meanwhile, on the scene, Austin Police Department stepped it up to help them as the EMS and emergency trucks tried to make their way through the crowd. That's where Austin Police Department had to step in, using their first aid training and tourniquet training to try to help those victims. EMS tells me they did get there within 10 minutes, at least that first truck, but it did take some time to get the personnel needed to help them. So it was truly a group effort. Of course, I am talking with hospitals to get another update, and we'll have that coming soon.
Tori Larned there for us with a live update outside the hospitals, and I can only imagine the loved ones and the friends of people, and that's something we've seen too on social media, the people that were with those that were shot, and how traumatic that is, and we're thinking about them right now, of course.
And absolutely, and Austin police are continuing to try to find that shooter as well. We'll be back in just a couple of moments.
Stay with us.
As we scan the skies, ranging anywhere from the upper 70s to the mid 80s already. Warmest areas out in the Grange currently at 84 degrees, 83 in Austin. And as you make your way to the hill country, we're tracking temperatures as low as 77 degrees out in Fredericksburg. If you take a look at those winds, they are coming in from the south, and that's helping to elevate our dew points, which is why it does feel so muggy and humid out there. And unfortunately, we're going to hold on to dew points like this for the foreseeable future. As you can see, upper 70s as you make your way to our southeastern counties, lower to mid 70s as you make your way closer to the Austin metro area. The, I guess, most pleasant conditions, if you can say that, out there in Fredericksburg, upper 60s, but that still feels in the uncomfortable to tropical range. So it's just going to only make it feel even warmer out there. In fact, those current feels like temperatures already in the upper 80s in Austin, similarly in Bastrop and Giddings. LaGrange, you're already sitting at what feels like 94 degrees, and we haven't even hit 10 o'clock in the morning yet. So it's going to be another hot one. Heat index is going to be back in the triple digits, not only today, but for the next several days as well. This is all due to a high pressure system that's building into the area and will continue to do so throughout the extended forecast. Temperatures on the thermometer this afternoon in the mid 90s. Could see a few isolated areas in the upper 90s. Many of us might be flirting with the hundreds by the end of the weekend. Now keep in mind that heat index is going to be even higher than that, so you're going to want to make sure you're staying hydrated. Also, make sure you're applying sunscreen because that UV index for today is an 11. Very high, very high. So make sure you're also taking some breaks if you're going to be spending extended periods outside. If you are going to be outside, you might also need that allergy medication. Grass and mold are both in the high, weeds in the low category, with your trees sitting in the medium currently. Always stay up to date with that information. The KVUE app and the Austin American-Statesman. Overnight lows tonight are showing that they'll be around average. We're accustomed to temperatures around 73 degrees. 74 is what we have on tap for Austin, and lower 70s for portions of the hill country. Muggiest as you make your way out towards the east. So we're continuing to see these reds, pinks, magentas. Those are those feels like temperatures that are just hot, hot, hot and muggy. Okay, we have that upper level high pressure system. It's going to continue building up to the north and staying to the west of us. But notice it keeps things dry, at least in regards to rain chances. In fact, our best rain chances are well to the east of us. I'm putting about a 10% chance for an isolated shower or storm throughout a majority of the forecast period, but we're going to be lucky if we even see that. That flow at the surface with bringing in those elevated dew points is what's going to make it feel muggy, which could squeeze out a little bit of moisture. Notice that as we go throughout the middle of the work week, Wednesday, we're still tracking mostly dry conditions. In fact, if you take a look at the rainfall forecast for the next 7 days, I mentioned I'm only throwing about a 10% chance for each day, and that's equating to maybe a tenth of an inch at best. So it is going to be kind of a dry period. It's good news that we got all that rain so many weeks ago, for so many weeks, I should say, that helped to put a dent in that drought monitor. Also, we are monitoring a potential area of tropical development in the southern portion of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, forecast models have been indicating if it were to develop, it could make its way towards the north. All of the models I was looking at were spelling more of a northeasterly trajectory if it develops at all. Right now, the National Hurricane Center only has it at about a 30% chance. Your 7-day forecast is looking hot, humid, and dry in regards to rain chances. Winds are also fairly calm as well. We're talking from the south today, 5 to 10 miles per hour. Similar conditions as you make your way into Sunday. And really, it's just going to be one of those days where you need to crank up the air conditioning and stay hydrated. Hannah?
Safe out there. Thank you, Shane Hinton, for us. Once again, if you're joining us on this Saturday morning, there was a mass shooting overnight. 13 people were shot. Some of you have asked us to really break down the scene for you. So we're actually going to show you some of the video from overnight.
Get to the back bar. Have a drink in the back, please. Appreciate y'all. Please, everybody. It's okay.
And as you can see there, Hannah, Austin police officers are giving CPR to at least one person in this video. But take a look at the size of the crowd. That is one of the things that we have been talking about as we get back to post-pandemic life. You can just see people are shoulder to shoulder in this cell phone video, Hannah. And I know that there are obviously police officers. Take a look at this shot with police officers clearly carrying a woman, appears to be a female victim who has been shot. And again, as we've been talking about, the rush to assist those victims and get them medical care as quickly as possible.
And these photos here from the Statesman, that one at the beginning with that woman being carried is something that I will keep with me. I mean, that is just such a powerful image, frightening. Anyone who's had a night on 6th Street, it's usually a night of fun. That's my favorite thing about 6th is the music and the life and everything. But last night was just, I mean, just so frightening. Look at that. You can only imagine.
And all too familiar, unfortunately, we are seeing, have seen 6th Street become a crime scene, a major crime scene through the years. Of course, this is the most significant. That video right there, by the way, is just so compelling when you see police officers running toward the danger like that, as they are in this shot as well. But Hannah, all too often, 6th Street has unfortunately become a crime scene. This is the most significant mass casualty incident that has happened really since 2014 in that area during South by Southwest, the international festival in which a man plowed through in a car and struck up to 30 people. 4 of them died. That was in 2014. And then, Hannah, in 2016, there was another major shooting in the summer of 2016 on 6th Street as well. So again, this really going to spark renewed discussions about safety in the heart of Austin's entertainment district and what not only law enforcement but really the community, Hannah, should do to prevent types of things like this from happening again.
And of course, this suspect is still at large. We want to continue to remind you that throughout the morning, but still a lot of pieces that we're trying to put together for you. And of course, we're going to do that throughout the day. Stay with us. We'll actually be right back with more. Stay with us. Barry's actually live on 6th Street right now with the latest on this investigation. Good morning, Bryce. How are things going now?
Well, Hannah, good morning. 6th Street is open. There is no crime scene still out here from last night's shooting, now more than about 8 hours ago. But what we do know is that police are still searching for that suspect. They have not found him. What they are describing him as, and I realize this is vague, they say that it's a black male with dreadlocks who is wearing a black shirt and a skinny build. So that's what we know. Again, we realize that's vague. That's what we've been told. I do want to show you some video from the scene from last night here quickly. Just once again, it is just powerful and horrific to see some of these images of what people were dealing with down here on 6th Street last night, between the people who were out, people who might have been visiting Austin and coming to this hot tourist destination, or the first responders who were rushing and trying to locate all of these victims and get them to safety. From the time that they got on the scene until the time that they were able to identify and get all of those victims, it took about 20 minutes. So you can imagine weaving in and out of all of the people who were down here and trying to make sure that everyone was safe. I do want to send things over to my colleague Tori Larned, who is live outside of the hospital this morning, where we understand that some of those victims are recovering. Tori, what are you learning?
Hey Bryce, yeah, good morning. I actually do have an update coming in for me. St. David's Healthcare tells me that they did take in one person to their hospital at St. David's South Austin Medical Center. That person is in fair condition. They're going to be okay. Meanwhile, I also spoke to someone here at Del Seaton. They have the other victims, except for that one person who did go to the urgent care. Right now, I am trying to get an update from them, but I did learn that Austin Travis County EMS were the individuals who took care of those critically injured and seriously injured people, 4 total. And we are tracking their conditions and hoping to get you an update very soon. So I'll come back with that.
Thank you so much, Tori Larned there. And real quick, before we head out this morning, we do want to give you kind of one more breakdown of this timeline. We're talking about 13 people downtown Austin. Taking a closer look, 2 patients are in critical condition. 2 others are in serious condition. 11 people were taken to Del Seaton, right outside where Tori was. 11 victims at St. David's South Medical Center. 1 person taken to urgent care. Tony, I still just can't
miraculously.
Get over absolutely. I just can't get over the amount of people we're talking about here.
And that miraculously no one, fortunately, has perished. But again, Hannah, just to underscore that there is a major police investigation going on right now involving multiple divisions within the Austin Police Department. The FBI is also assisting, as we understand it. If you have any information, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers at 512-472-TIPS.
The suspect is still on the loose. Follow us on KVUE.com, on all of our social media. We are going to continue to follow this. Shane?
Well, Hannah, we are tracking what is forecast to be the hottest weekend in Central Texas so far of 2021. Temperatures ranging anywhere from the mid to upper 90s, but that heat index is in the triple digits. So please make sure you're staying safe and staying hydrated if you're spending long periods of time outdoors.